5 reasons why these pop stars refuse to acknowledge Jungkook. Reason number 5. Strategic focus on domestic audiences. Finally, one overlooked reason behind certain pop stars' decision to not acknowledge Jungkook is their strategic focus on domestic audiences. For many Western artists, maintaining relevance within their home market, particularly the United States or Europe, remains a top priority. Engaging with artists like Jungkook, who command primarily global and Asian audiences, may not align with their marketing strategies, especially if their teams are not aiming to penetrate international fan bases at that moment. Domestic markets often drive touring schedules, radio play, and endorsement deals. Pop stars who are focused on dominating charts in North America or Europe may choose to limit external associations that don't directly support that objective. From a branding perspective, acknowledging an artist like Jungkook, who thrives in a different system, might be viewed as unnecessary or even distracting from their local image positioning. This strategic inward focus also influences public relations planning. Press releases, interviews, and digital campaigns are carefully constructed around culturally resonant themes, including local references and regional partnerships. Unless there's a collaboration or award nomination that naturally ties both artists together, public acknowledgement is rarely part of the communication agenda. Moreover, some artists and their management may view K-pop, despite its global reach, as operating in a separate genre silo. As such, referencing Jungkook may not be seen as relevant to their own narrative or artistic trajectory. Even when admiration exists privately, public mention might be withheld due to a perceived lack of strategic alignment. In conclusion, the decision to remain silent on Jungkook may stem from a calculated marketing focus on core domestic audiences. Rather than being a personal slight, this approach reflects how artists tailor their external communication based on targeted market goals. Reason number 4. Limited direct interaction or collaboration. A more neutral and logistical reason why some pop stars do not acknowledge Jungkook is due to the lack of direct interaction or collaboration with him. In the music industry, public acknowledgement is often driven by personal connection, shared projects, or business partnerships. If two artists have not met, spoken, or worked together, public recognition may be deemed unnecessary or even out of context. Jungkook's work has primarily centered within the BTS ecosystem and recently through carefully selected solo ventures. While his global impact is undeniable, the nature of the K-pop industry, with tightly managed schedules, language barriers, and differing promotional structures, limits the number of organic interactions he may have with Western pop stars. In contrast, many Western artists build professional relationships through award shows, recording studios, private industry events, or music festivals. Jungkook, by comparison, operates within a different promotional circuit, where interaction with non-Korean pop stars remains relatively infrequent unless a collaboration is formally arranged. Without these shared experiences, artists may simply not have a personal basis to mention or acknowledge him. Furthermore, labels often discourage artists from referencing others who are outside their collaboration network, unless there's a strategic or marketing-related benefit. This is especially true in cases where there's no crossover in target demographics, regions, or platforms. Public mentions are typically reserved for co-branded releases, mutual endorsements, or label-approved relationships for artists who have not directly engaged with Jungkook, musically, socially, or professionally. There may be little incentive to offer public acknowledgement, regardless of his popularity. The absence of such mention is not necessarily a sign of disrespect, but rather a reflection of how global artists operate in segmented spheres. In summary, logistical gaps and industry separation explain why some artists haven't publicly recognized Jungkook. Until those gaps are bridged through collaborations or events, their silence is likely circumstantial rather than intentional. Reason number 3. Fear of fanbase backlash and online dynamics. In today's hyper-connected world, public interactions between celebrities are highly scrutinized by fan communities, especially in the case of artists with strong digital followings like Jungkook. Some pop stars may refuse to acknowledge Jungkook due to concerns about potential backlash from fanbases, both their own and Jungkook's, which can escalate quickly online and affect their reputation or public perception. The fandom ecosystem surrounding Jungkook and BTS is massive, organized, and extremely active. While largely positive, this environment can also be intense, especially when it comes to perceived slights, underappreciation, or rivalry. For a Western or non-Korean artist, even a minor misstatement or misinterpretation related to Jungkook can quickly become a trending controversy, drawing negative attention or accusations. To avoid such situations, some artists may choose the safer route of non-engagement altogether. Moreover, fan culture today doesn't just amplify praise, it also magnifies tension. If a pop star acknowledges Jungkook too enthusiastically or not enough, both extremes can be dissected and criticized online. There's also the risk of being accused of using Jungkook's name solely for clout or publicity, which can backfire, especially if the artist has no real collaborative relationship or shared history with him. In addition, fan-led comparisons between Jungkook and other artists can fuel online debates, where each side aggressively defends their favorite. Acknowledging Jungkook could unintentionally intensify these comparisons, potentially causing unnecessary division between fan bases and affecting artists' digital engagement metrics, something labels and management teams closely monitor. This dynamic can create a social media minefield where silence becomes a form of self-protection. Artists who are not equipped to handle the intricacies of K-pop fandom behavior may feel it's safer to avoid any form of mention or association, even if they personally admired Jungkook's work. Ultimately, the fear of misinterpretation and digital conflict, rather than any personal animosity, drives many pop stars to avoid publicly recognizing Jungkook. The online world's speed and scale of reaction make this decision more about strategy than sentiment. Reason number 2. Industry gatekeeping and cultural bias. Another key factor explaining why some pop stars do not acknowledge Jungkook is rooted in industry gatekeeping and cultural bias. Despite the global success of K-pop, certain sectors of the Western music industry continue to operate under structures that favor English-speaking acts and prioritize cultural familiarity. Within this context, acts like Jungkook, despite undeniable popularity, are still perceived as outsiders to the mainstream system. Industry gatekeepers, including award show executives, media outlets, and record label marketing divisions, often control which artists receive visibility, promotion, and credibility within certain markets. While Jungkook has consistently proven his global influence through fan-driven metrics, organic virality, and international collaborations, formal recognition remains scarce in some traditional spaces. As a result, other artists who operate within this system may feel limited or hesitant in offering open acknowledgement, particularly if it risks going against the narrative established by gatekeepers. Cultural bias also plays a role. Some Western artists may unconsciously or consciously view Jungkook as less legitimate simply because he comes from a different cultural and linguistic background. While this perception is slowly changing due to the impact of BTS and other K-pop groups, the remnants of cultural elitism still exist. This dynamic is amplified by the lack of Korean representation in key positions within global music institutions, from award juries to executive leadership. There's also a concern that acknowledging Jungkook could create friction with powerful industry figures who have not yet fully embraced K-pop's legitimacy. Some artists may avoid mentioning him not out of personal bias, but to avoid complications with label politics, PR strategies, or media partnerships. In other words, silence can be a politically safe option in a still evolving industry ecosystem. Therefore, what appears as a lack of respect may in fact be the byproduct of entrenched structural limitations and cultural bias. Until these underlying industry issues are addressed, recognition of talents like Jungkook may remain inconsistent across sectors of the global music scene. Reason number 1. Competitive positioning in the global music market. One of the primary reasons certain pop stars may choose not to openly acknowledge Jungkook is due to competitive positioning in the global music industry. In the current digital streaming ecosystem, where visibility and narrative control are crucial for maintaining relevance, many Western and international artists may avoid giving direct recognition to peers or rising stars who represent perceived competition, particularly from the K-pop sector. Jungkook, as a member of BTS and a solo artist, commands significant global influence across streaming platforms, social media engagement, and brand recognition. His solo releases have broken language barriers and consistently charted internationally, often competing directly with Western artists in markets traditionally dominated by English-language music. Acknowledging his dominance may disrupt the positioning narrative that Western pop stars try to maintain within their home markets. In practical terms, an endorsement or public recognition of Jungkook can be seen as conceding space in an already crowded global pop landscape. Music label strategies often center around differentiation. Artists are strategically marketed as unique, trailblazing, or the voice of a generation. Publicly aligning with Jungkook, whose identity is deeply rooted in the K-pop movement, may blur those distinctions and potentially dilute an artist's brand, especially if their label sees Jungkook as a benchmark or a rival. Furthermore, some Western artists still operate within traditional paradigms that underplay or underestimate the commercial and cultural impact of non-Western musicians. Despite overwhelming data proving K-pop's international dominance, there remains hesitancy within some segments of the music industry to fully embrace Korean acts as equals on the global stage. For these artists, not acknowledging Jungkook could be a strategic choice influenced by outdated industry norms or pressure from management teams aiming to control the narrative. In conclusion, the lack of public acknowledgement from certain pop stars likely stems not from personal disregard, but from a calculated effort to maintain competitive separation. As Jungkook continues to solidify his global standing, these dynamics may evolve, but at present, strategic competition plays a significant role in the silence.